You're listening to the Road to Wisdom podcast, weaving stories told by wonderful minds about all things motherhood, health, intimacy, politics, nature, and everything in between.
Join us on an adventure discovering unique experiences that we can learn from to enhance the ways in which we live.
We are your hosts, Chloe
and Keshia. Welcome everyone to the Road to Wisdom podcast. Today we are, by request, going into part 2 of Chloe's birth stories. We had quite a few people very interested in our birth stories after we released them, and asking for part 2s.
I think it's because our part 1s are very different to probably what we talk about.
Yes. Yeah.
And so people are like, wow, I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's a journey.
It is. So I guess today we're all about you and Rosie and Banjo.
Which I have to remember because Rosie's 4 and Banjo's 2, which I remember much more than
I know
the first 2. But
we have to actually make this a whole entire podcast because
all right,
we're going back into boring birth.
No, I was thinking it's a boring birth, guys. I mean, the baby just came out and I just went to sleep. It's no big deal. No, but I was actually thinking about this on the way down here, and I thought it'd be interesting. I should start with Rosie's conception because it's a bit of a story.
Take it away.
So basically, I didn't know I was pregnant. By the way, I'll just preface this with saying that we've never tried not to have a baby. So when I say it wasn't a planned thing, it was a planned thing, but it wasn't a planned thing at the same time. Anyway, so
you just run the gauntlet, don't you?
I just do.
It's Russian roulette every time you have sex.
Every single time. And the babies just come when they come, and it's weird because they've all come 2 years apart, almost to the month. But anyway, this particular time we were actually this isn't the conception story, but this is kind of when I started to feel I think I'm pregnant. We went to the Carlisle, we were staying there because we were going to see Karungba, which is one of my favorite bands. I love them. And so anyway, we were having dinner at Hellenica, and after 2 wines, I was I'm so drunk and this is unusual. Anyway, obviously didn't think anything of it, went out and I was crying, emotional, and I was what is going on? This is so unusual. And then anyway, I think it was the week later actually, we were flying out to Toronto for another season of Brenton's show. And I was just really emotional, and I was this is so weird. I don't know why all of this just feels so hard. It must be the travel. It must be just life. Anyway, got to Toronto, realized I hadn't got my period yet amongst the chaos of moving over to Canada again. And anyway, so I was ruminating on it, and I was oh my God, this is not good timing. I really don't know about this. This wouldn't be great. Anyway, took a test. Turns out I was pregnant. But then I started bleeding a lot, and I was well, I don't really know what this is because I've never had a miscarriage before. And I was maybe this is just what it is. And so I was kind of preparing for that. And anyway, it just kind of kept happening, but it wasn't so I was kind of trying to figure out what that looked like.
Can I ask, was the bleed a period bleed?
No.
Or was it?
Yeah, it was. It kind of was, but it was more browny as well, old blood. It was kind of just weird. And
did it feel
mucousy.
crampy?
Yeah. And anyway, I was okay, well, I'm obviously, I don't know what to do here. I've just arrived in Canada. I'm in a foreign place. I have no friends. I have no community here. I'm going to go to the doctor.
You had 2 toddlers at that stage.
Yeah, I had two littles. And so I was I went to the doctor, and they were oh, we don't know, just wait and see. And I was oh, all right, well, this is really this is uncomfortable. This is shit. I kind of want to know what's going on. And so I actually went to the hospital because all the doctors were I don't know, Canada and America and that entire region is different. You're just not getting the same thing as you're getting here in Australia. So I just decided to just go to the hospital and be like, I just want to know, like, can you just confirm if like what's going on here? And basically like after a while there, I can't even really remember what we did. But anyway, one of the ladies was like, look, I think that it's probably you're miscarrying, but we'll just keep checking your HCG. But my HCG kept going up and anyway, I can't even really remember. I wish I could remember in more detail what I did, what the testing and everything was. Anyway, a couple of days went by and then I went back and she basically said that it was most likely that I had conceived twins and that one of them passed through.
Blows my mind.
Which is, I mean, and I still don't know if that's confirmed or anything. That's just like, she's like, this happens, sounds like this, looks like that. Let's just see what happens and just wait it out. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, wow, that is like completely insane to me, to the thought of like, did I really conceive twins? Because that would have shaken my world right up.
But also you conceived and miscarried at the same time. Like can you do two completely opposite things at the exact same time? Apparently.
Yeah.
That's wild. How did you feel when she told you that?
I wasn't like, I don't really know, to be honest. I was kind of just going with it. I was like, oh, well, if I've got one baby left, well, but I didn't feel like robbed of an experience or I didn't feel like completely devastated or anything like that. I was just kind of just going with it. Anyway, turns out I was still pregnant. There was still a baby in there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was it. After all that kind of settled down and it stopped after like a couple of weeks, I was just pregnant with a singleton and I knew that much. But I was in Toronto and it was just the worst timing ever to be pregnant. And it was just like a particularly hard season of life, I think. And but yeah, so it was the first time that I'd ever experienced like that first trimester tiredness, sickness, and I still had it pretty good, but I was so emotional, so tired, and I had 2 kids to kind of like wrangle, and Brenton was working heaps. So it was just a time. It was a real big time. Anyway, but we got over that and then ended up coming back to Australia. I think it was like probably 6 months in or something, 5 or 6 months in.
And were you receiving any prenatal care before you came back home?
Yeah, so I actually, a girl that worked on set with Brenton, like their assistant, she had a really good friend who was a midwife. And so I kind of just made friends with her and I was like, hey, I'm like in a totally
just check me out.
funky country here. Like I'm pregnant, I think, because they said that I was back then, but I don't know like I really don't know what's going on. But I obviously knew that that there was a baby there. And yeah, what did I do? Gosh, it was so long ago. The system in Canada is very different. Lots of scanning, lots of like, there's just a lot. But at that time, so my midwife, she was like, my midwife friend, I should say, I didn't really appoint her. She was just like, I'm here if you need me. And we actually became really good friends with their family and they're actually the most awesome family. They're a big family. They have this incredible farm out in like.
Oh, I think I remember you telling me about this family.
And they honestly were kind of like our inspiration to become like farming people and get into that. And yeah, they're like a big Steiner family / like a combination of that and politicians. And they're just really cool people. Anyway, so I hung out with her for a lot and just there was that safety in her. But ultimately I didn't really do anything until I got back. And then I actually reached out to my birth support person while I was away and I was just like, I'm, like almost 30 weeks pregnant, coming home. I think I would like to have you there. And so, yeah, it was very casual, like first meeting her and we kind of just hung out a little bit every
And this is the first time that you've had this person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just kind of bonded as people, as friends. And she was very no fuss. She was like this beautiful Islander woman who was just like, yeah, you just have a baby. No worries. I'm there if you need me kind of thing. And so, yeah, around, I don't think there's anything exciting to share in between then and the time that she actually arrived. But yeah, basically, actually the night before she arrived, or the day, a couple of days leading up, I just had this like really intense urge to have like a big entertaining feast at my house. So Brenton invited one of his friends, Boyd and Nicola, over. They hadn't had kids by then at that stage, but I cooked like, and I always laugh about this, and every time I see them I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that. But I made this like an entire table full of vegetarian, because at the time I was like experimenting, still in and out of that. And I made everything from scratch, like Mexican. I'm talking like every single thing, like sauces, like empanadas, like everything from scratch. And it was like 4 people at my dinner table, and it was a whole thing. And I was just like, I'm so obsessed with it. Anyway, after they left that night, I went to the toilet and I like lost what I now know to be a mucus plug, which I'd never experienced before.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I think this is my mucus plug. But at the time I was only like almost 38 weeks pregnant. So I was a bit early. And anyway, I was...
Before you go there, because for those of you who haven't listened to Chloe's part 1, Pip came early, your second. So was there any time in that where you got nervous or had any of that come up for you?
It was actually a massive part of Rosie's pregnancy, because I was like, oh, I was really stressed because I was away from, and I did not want to have a baby in Canada because the whole system is just quite weird. Even though I had my midwife, she's like, I'll support you if you want to have a baby at home. That's no worries. But there was a lot of unresolved birth trauma around Pippa, and the fact that she just came so spontaneously, and I never understood why. And I had to go through all that. So I was always like, I always had this thing of just like, oh, just get me to 37 weeks so I can have a baby. Just get me to 37 weeks. 37 weeks is like the vision, the goal. And then, so yeah, she ended up coming like almost like 37 and a half weeks or something. So it was still pretty early. And I was like, okay, I guess this is just like, I guess I just have babies early now. I don't know. But yeah, it was definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
Trying to keep my mind.
When you passed that date, because I know there's so many people out there who would have experienced something similar. So once you passed the date that Pip was born, was it like every day is just like, okay. And like feeling relaxed and like a bit more confident and building that? It's
hard. It's really hard to not believe that your body's going to do that again, or like you relive that experience and you just dread it. But ultimately we got past that date, and I know my birth support person was like, let's just get you to 37 weeks so I don't have to enter the hospital. I'm like, thank you. Like I need that. But now I'm holding on to come at 44. Can you come at 44 weeks, this baby? I want you 44 weeks, nothing earlier. I need to be like living up on that mountain. Anyway, so I cooked a massive feast and lost my mucus plug, but I was devastated, right? Because this is funny, because I was reading this book and I was so into it, and I was probably like 50 pages to the finish, and it's like a page, so I'm like, you can't put this book down. And I was just laying in bed. I was like, oh, it's just my mucus plug. Like, I'll be good. Like, I'll just go to bed. And Brenda was like, okay, cool. And we're both just reading in bed like old people after a dinner party.
I love that. Like that's my dream, to get back to that. It's like in bed with the salt lamps on, reading every night. Ugh.
And I'm like just reading through the contraction. And because if you listen to my part 1, I don't really have I don't have a
pre-warning.
There's no like, oh, we're warming up for this. And you like go for a walk on the beach. Like there's none of that. It's just like we're on. Anyway, so I was like, I'm not fucking having this baby until I've read this book. Like turning the pages, and Brendan just looks at me every now and again. He's like, you good? I'm like, yep. And then like I would have been like 50 pages away or whatever. And I remember like by the time I was just a couple of pages to the end, I was like standing over my bathroom ensuite vanity and just like still had the book in front of me. I'm like, oh, all right.
Can we know what the book is?
Yeah, it's called, it's one of my favorite authors, Hannah Kristen. Oh my God, my brain. Kristen Hannah. Kristen Hannah.
Apologies,
Kristen
everyone.
Hannah.
We don't have brains anymore.
I'm just going to post the book. It's called like Into the, oh my God. Such a good book. I can't even remember the name right now.
It was the best book.
It was the best book ever. I love it. And after that book, she became like my favorite author, and I've read like every single one of her books. It's amazing. Anyway, so I finished the book and I was like, on such a high, because I was like, that's the best book ever. Loved it. I was so invested in the story, so invested in the characters. Closed the book and I was like, all right, we're having a baby. Like, get some shit organized. And we decided I was going to give birth downstairs because it was late. And I think it just made more sense at that time with just how our like furniture and everything was. So we had our birth pool downstairs, and bless Brenton. And I feel like every dad does this. They just leave a shit to the last minute and they don't really know what they're doing. And then like they're trying to understand how to like put the hose in the adapter on the laundry sink or whatever and like get the temperature right and do the thing. And anyway, I was like, you know, at the point where you're like on your tippy toes and you're in that stage of contractions and you just like, I was there. And then I just texted my birth support person. I was like, hey, this is happening. No rush. Like, just if you're coming, whatever. And anyway, I forgot that when I lost my mucus plug, I actually texted her a photo of it. And I was like, what is this? Because I'd not had it before. And she was like, oh, that's your mucus plug. I was like, oh, cool. Okay. I'll text you later. Anyway, she had already come at that point, I think. This is a bit hazy. But when I text her again, she's like, oh, I've been sitting at the front of your house in my car for like hours. And I was like, okay, cool. Anyway, she came in.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. She's like, she came in and this is where this is really fascinating, and it always fascinates me because when she got there, my labor pretty much completely stopped. And I was like, interesting. And at the time I was like, oh, whatever, I'll just go back to bed. And anyway, oh no, that's right. Pippa woke up and then my labor stopped. And so I was like, okay, this is all stopped. And it was so frustrating because I know you've experienced this too, where you've just like got there and then it's like, oh, and we're ending and we're stopping and we're going back to the start. And anyway, so I just like slept downstairs for a while. I'm pretty sure she left or had a sleep on my couch as well. And then woke up in the morning, still no baby. This would have been like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And anyway, so everyone left, went out, had their day. Brenton took the kids out and it was like nothing happened again for the whole day.
Yeah.
So I went from like not active pushing or anything, but just really there. Yeah. To nothing at all. And anyway, so I was just had a day with the kids and whatever. And then that night we basically put the kids to bed and it was just like instant back on. Like as soon as everyone was tucked in and settled, it was just back on again. And
can we just have a quick discussion there? I'm going to pause you for a second because how incredible that we've had these conversations about light and melatonin and when all that is produced. And if you're like in circadian rhythm, you're going to most likely labor, like start your labor at least in the evening / night. Yep. So like go your circadian rhythm body. That's epic.
I can't really say that I was probably that aligned at that time because I was traveling a lot. I was living in Canada, so I was probably actually just not that good, but I'm going to claim it anyway. Yes, in the moment, my circadian rhythm was perfect. But yeah, it's also interesting, right? Because like we've talked about this as well, like we're just primal and animalistic when we birth in a way. And if we're left to just do that, that can be normal. Like labor stopping can be normal. And that's not a reason to be like, oh, the baby must be in, like I wasn't monitored or anything the entire time. There was no like checking. There was no absolutely nothing to suggest or even give the opportunity to suggest, oh, baby, that there would be a reason of concern that happened So that was great. But yeah, also that the baby just waited until it knew that it could come without any interruptions from my kids. And that I must have felt like, okay, the day's done. They're good. Everyone's good. Everything's great. This can happen now. And so, yeah, it pretty much did. And then this was like the same time probably. It just started like warming up again, and Brent was like, all right, I'll get it all ready again. And,
At least you got a practice run.
Yeah. I don't think any water even hit the thing at the first time. But yeah, so it was just us, and then my birth support person came later on. And yeah, it was very uneventful. I have a very quick labor, like a couple of hours at this point. And I just was, so basically it was just me and Brenton, and then my birth support person was just hanging out in my house downstairs on the couch, just cruising.
And so labour started escalating. When did you decide to jump in the pool?
It's at that moment when, for me, it's like when, because usually, so all my labours are the same. Basically, I'll just be walking around the house, pause, have the contraction, and then they'll just get more intense. And then it will go from like being able to walk and just hold myself up to like bending over anything, like the table, a piece of furniture, and like holding my arms there with my head down. And then I'm like, okay. And then when I get to the point where I'm like on my like on my toes during a contraction, I'm like, okay, I think I want to get in the pool now. So it's like around about then. And I remember exactly where it was, this little groove in the wall downstairs. And I was just basically there the whole time. I don't really move around much. I don't bounce on balls. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm pretty much just like.
Whereas you see my videos and I'm like in the wall, in the shower, on the on the ball.
I'm just like in it, and I just stay there and I just do the same thing because I know it works so well. That's why I'm scared of this fifth baby coming through, because I'm like, you're going to be born posterior. I'm going to be jumping around the house. I'm going to be like flying through hoops. You're going to really take me out of that.
Don't manifest. Continue.
Yeah, I know.
Rosie needs to come out. Yeah. Come on.
Okay. And then, so I got in the pool, and it's like, I feel like she was probably born within, 40 minutes of getting in there. Mm-hmm. And she came out, and it was all very uneventful, all very boring. But the most exciting part of the whole thing was the fact that I just bled so much afterwards. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I hadn't worked with this birth support person. She was just like, oh, what's going on here? Like, she's obviously seen it, being like, okay, I don't know if I was like, it's my normal. This is how much I bleed all the times. Like, it's never been a concern. I feel fine. Mm-hmm. I'm not worried about this. I just kind of got out, sat on my couch, and then that was probably the most exciting part of the whole thing, was just like.
So with the blood for you, was it normal?
Like, it was
a normal
fine.
amount?
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't have any symptoms of like dizziness or lightheadedness? Or
I was fine. I just gave birth, so I was like very, how do you explain that? Like, it's very like. It's like if you've ever ran ran a long distance, like I've run a half marathon before, and you get to the end and you're like, that. Yeah. That's how you feel, obviously. Yeah. And then it was all just chill and calm after that. And then, we just hung out for a bit, and then it was very slow and just.
Did the girls come in?
No, they were all asleep.
They stayed asleep the whole time?
They stayed asleep the whole time, even though I'm the biggest primal animal when I'm birthing.
You got some good sound.
Barriers. But the worst thing, the most horrific part of that third birth was my after pains, because they hit me like, and I had things, like I had homeopathics, I had my teas, I had like all these things. But I just wasn't on it. I don't think quick enough. And I remember my birth support person was just like helping me on the toilet. She was like, I was just sitting on the toilet, and she was like sponge bathing the blood off my legs, and like just helping, like putting my undies on, and just like putting me to bed, and just kind of she just tucked me in for the night. And then
how long did it take for your placenta to be born?
I can't even remember. probably like within the half an hour or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so she just tucked me in. It was just me and Rosie was in the spare bed, and I just went to sleep, and she just had to sleep on my couch, and I guess she just was, I don't know, I don't even know what she was doing. I think she was with Brenton, hanging out, helping, maybe went upstairs, cleaned up the stuff, and yeah, I was just asleep, but I was struggling. Like I was so uncomfortable. Like my after birth pains were as intense as active labor. And I was just like, I think I even had like, I don't think I had a fever, but it felt like I had one. I was like really just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And yeah, every time I had one of those contractions, I was just like, whoa, I don't know if I'm going to survive this part. Anyway, I did. And yeah, and then the next morning the girls all came down and they saw her and they all met for the first time. It was really sweet. But yeah, it was very uneventful, boy.
But it's still also very exciting.
Yeah.
And like
Rosie was my most uneventful, like standard, just birth, there's your baby.
Yeah.
And yeah. But I remember also just because it was my third and because of how easy the birth and just like the whole thing was, we just went to sleep and she was so calm. And like I actually went to sleep that night.
Yeah.
I just woke up in the morning. I had a lot of the pains and stuff, but ultimately like I felt so rested and just like I walked 4 meters from where I gave birth and then stayed there and just didn't have to move. I didn't have to do anything. It was just so good.
Oh,
the biggest challenge was walking back up my stairs to the kitchen and like hopping into my actual own bed and yeah, nesting there for a while. But yeah, that's the boring birth story of
that's
Rosie.
amazing. And do you practice any kind of confinement period afterwards?
After Rosie, I was like, I really want to just stay home. I just don't want to, but I struggled. I didn't really set it up properly. And because I still was terrible at receiving, I'm still terrible at receiving now, but I didn't like put out meal trains. I didn't do anything. It just was like friends who were around who just did it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, I'm going to stay home. And I remember by the second week, I was so sad and so isolated and so lonely. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to like leave my house. So I think after just over 2 weeks, I was like an emotional trainer. I was like, I can't not be around. Like I need to do something. I need to see something. Like I just need to get out of my house, of my room.
Yeah.
So I did struggle with that.
Yeah.
So, but I wasn't inviting anybody over either.
Yeah,
so I have just maybe had like
a visitor or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, don't come over. Don't do this. Don't do that. I just didn't feel like it wasn't intentional, but I just didn't feel like it. I just felt like being at home. And I also was intentional about not leaving. But by that time, I just was over it. I was like, this doesn't feel good being isolated. I was isolating myself basically.
Yeah, okay. And when you did then come out of that and you started leaving the house, did you feel good? Like your body felt good?
Yeah, I felt fine. I wasn't like, oh God, that's too much, or like dizzy or tired or lightheaded, or because you're during that period where you still feel like super
space cadet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're still landing.
Yeah. Like I experienced with the first when I went out on day 3 for a coffee.
Yeah. The things we did.
Yeah. I didn't do anything like that. But I always like because Brenton was home and he'd take the kids and just spend the whole day out because that's what I thought I wanted, like total isolation and just to be left to just do my thing. But they would leave in the morning and I'd be like, where are you guys going? Like, don't leave me again. And yeah, by the 2 weeks I was like, I can't do this anymore. Don't leave again, or I'm coming, or just don't go, or like I don't know what this is, but I don't want to be by myself anymore. So yeah, I think I left that bubble pretty quickly, but I didn't go crazy and start just filling in all the days and being out and about or anything. I just kind of like opened my door. Yeah, I just opened my door basically, and I was like, come in. I can't do that anymore. I know I was firm about it, but I actually don't want it anymore.
Which I think is totally healthy.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, then you got knocked up again, which I know this story quite well because.
Do you?
Well, I messaged you saying I'm pregnant and then it was like 2 weeks later.
I'm pretty sure I was like, you said, oh, get pregnant. And I'm like, God, no. Absolutely not. And then I think, 2 weeks later, I was like, hey, babe, I'm pregnant.
I remember getting that text because I was walking through the door and I just started high-pitched squealing.
Oh my
and
God.
Tugga was just like, what the like I just picked the kids up from school. I'm like, oh my God. And Tugga was like, oh my God, like what?
What is wrong with you?
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, Chloe's pregnant. We're having babies together. We're having our 4th babies
How
together.
did we manage to work that? Because we've had, obviously both the last 2 of our babies have come through at the same time pretty much.
Well, yeah, I mean, they'll be the same year. But I think there's a decent gap still between Rue and Rose.
But Poet and Banjo are the same.
Poet and Banjo.
Pretty much.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and then these 2 will be within.
I planted a spirit baby when I was pregnant. I was just like, do it with me, bitch.
You roped me in, except I roped you in this time. You were like, absolutely not.
Oh my God, it was payback.
You conceived first.
I did conceive first.
But you roped me in again.
Well, no, because I think that you were ready. You were getting clucky and I was not getting clucky.
I wasn't.
You were a little bit. You were looking at babies.
We were just like, if it's going to happen, it should happen now, because I couldn't, I know that I don't want to have, and I know I'll probably listen to this in 5 years and be accidentally pregnant, but I wouldn't want to go through having all my kids together and then have this rogue baby that's 7-year gap or something. I was like, if it's going to happen, let's do it now.
Yeah.
And then.
Wait, was that this time or Banjo?
This time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. But not this time. We're going Banjo.
Okay, yeah. That's right.
Banjo us.
There's so many. I just can't Well, Banjo is even more boring than that story.
Guys, saddle yourselves up. This is going to be the best episode ever.
There's no drama at all. It's just a baby came out of my vag and yeah, that's it. No, well, we were in Canada again and it was actually a really awesome season in Canada. So it was the last season of Brenton's TV show. It was summer and it was the reopening after COVID. So Toronto, if anyone's ever lived there or been there or lived there, it's an awesome place for live music. There's a lot going on in the summer. Everybody just opens their door. There's flowers everywhere. Everything's in full bloom. Everyone's happy. Everyone's just doing stuff. And it's a really good vibe. Anyway, so we'd been fairly deprived of good vibes, obviously, because of certain weird things that happened in the world for a couple of years. So we were just having a ball. We were having the best summer ever. We were going to see live music every week and just loving life, and also at total peace with just where Brenton was with the job, and that was coming to this whole season was kind of coming to an end of being in Canada, and just we were just really happy about all that in a way. And and so we conceived Banjo in Canada. Probably after having a really fun night out, seeing live music or something. I don't know. I can't actually remember. But so we found out we were having him there, not him, because that was still a mystery. And I remember just feeling I can't believe we're having another baby. And who is it going to be? First we were like, oh my God, imagine if it's another girl. We're totally screwed with 4 girls. And but yeah, so I'm just trying to think of the timeline. So it was summer, found out we were pregnant, and then we left and went to, where did we go? I think we just came straight home maybe, probably, I don't know. Can't remember that either. The years I feel like I had
mushing, aren't they?
Yeah, I feel like I had such good memory of the linear years of life, and then COVID happened, and now I'm like, oh, I don't know, what happened.
Was in COVID. I remember you guys had to do 2 weeks in.
Yeah, we did quarantine in Sydney. Was I pregnant then?
Yes.
Was I?
Yeah, because I was sending
you
packages that never arrived.
Oh my gosh, yes, for the kids. And then they got returned
3
to
months. Yeah, 3 months later, I'm like, hey, here's all those activities you could have really done with for that 2-week period.
Oh my God, that's right. That's right. And oh God, yeah, I had to deal with all that. So yeah, we came back to Oz. That's right. We did 2 weeks hotel quarantine, and oh my God, I was such a staunch pregnant bitch. I was like, I'm not doing it. Yeah. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And anyway, got back to the Gold Coast. I honestly feel like Banjo was such a blur, but I had caught up with the same birth support person and pretty much was just doing like not much in my pregnancy at all with Banjo. It was a lot of just being at home. And yeah, we had her again. I can't remember when I started seeing her. Mm-hmm. I know it was later on. And yeah. Dude, this is
Do you want me to try and remind you of some things?
Yeah.
I remember you guys went camping and you were getting really bad headaches. Like that was one thing that stuck out for me.
Okay, because I was just thinking like, what was my life then? I can't even think of the timeline at all right now. That's right. So we decided that we were going on a road trip and it was October, which was not that I was fairly pregnant at that point. So we went north and we're going to go all the way up to Cairns, which we did. And yeah, I remember after we'd camped for a little bit in 1770, which is like where we've been there together. And I just started getting these hectic migraines and it was nothing I'd ever experienced before. Like I don't even get headaches as it is. And I just thought, it's just like it's really hot. I'm pregnant. We're camping. I'm sleeping on a pretty dodgy bed. I've probably just like I don't know, my neck's a little crunk or something. Anyway, we kept on traveling and every day I would wake up and within like, I don't know, an hour of waking up, I just get this severe migraine and I was like, what is going on? But you know those I had never had a migraine up until this point. And I couldn't even like move my head. It was so bad. And I was trying to think of all the things that it could be. I was like, is there mold in the Defender? Is there like, did I hurt myself? Is there something like going on with baby? Like what is going on here? Is it something else? Like, I don't know, all the things. And because COVID hadn't really hit our area yet. Like we were in and out of lockdowns. I think the borders were closed. That's why we were going north and not south.
Yeah.
It was actually because I remember meeting a couple at 1770 who couldn't go home south. Anyway.
Yeah.
So obviously I was avoiding
hospitals.
Like the plague. And we got to like Magnetic Island or something and I was like, I cannot take this anymore. Like I couldn't even stand up, couldn't bend down with my head, like couldn't do anything. So I took myself to the emergency and I was like, something's not good. Like I don't know what this is. And they'd like check everything and they were like, your baby's fine. You're fine. We don't really know. And I was like, cool. It's exactly what I expected to hear. Don't know what else I was coming for. They're like, you can just take pain medicine. And I was like, yeah, okay, thanks. And anyway, it just did not get better. They're like, if it doesn't get better, you should come back. Anyway, so we kept traveling north and then it just didn't get better. It was so bad. And we ended up flying home from Cairns actually because I was just like, I can't do this anymore. But yeah, weirdly got home and they just were not really a thing anymore. So, but yeah, anyway, fast forward to the time when Banjo was born, I actually had a really hectic cough and I was really sick. And at the time, someone would have probably said you have COVID, but at that time, I just didn't even believe in COVID. Didn't really believe that it was like a thing to be concerned about. So I just treated it like I would treat getting sick every other time. And but yeah, anyway, I kept having, so this was close to 38 weeks pregnant as well, like pretty much on the dot. And I just started getting like heaps of cramps, like especially during the nights. And I was like, I feel like it's near, but I had a really bad cough, like a whooping, like a like a bark.
Yeah. And just for the record, I'd organised this epic blessing way for you. And it was like, it must have been for the day after you started getting those cramps and stuff.
Yeah.
And people were dropping like flies. I think the 3 days prior to it was like, I just tested positive for COVID. I just tested positive. That's when it started spreading around. And I had a 3-week hold too. So I'm like, if you have COVID, please do not come.
Yeah. Anyway, and so I was like coughing so badly. And then one morning I woke up, it was just before dawn, and I had like these cramps, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I just got up. I just took myself out of bed because I was tossing and turning. I'm like, I'm just feeling like I can't settle. So I'm just going to go outside and sit on the balcony and just watch the sunrise. And then I just knew, I was sitting out there on our couch on the balcony. I was like, oh, I think today's the day. And but it was it was a really different labor actually to my others, because I actually felt like I had a day labor, like one of those labors that I always was told I was going to have and I never got. Like go for a walk and eat and sleep and stuff, like all
journal.
that stuff. Yeah, journal how you feel and whatever it is. Anyway, so I had that, and then everyone woke up. It was just like a really slow day. My mum was actually with us at the time, which was really nice because she was wrangling all the kids. And by lunchtime I was like still pretty, like everything's still pretty mild. Like it's definitely like, you know, regular contractions, but very chill, nothing intense. And so we went for lunch actually out at Grumman Valley but by the time we got there, I was like, we can't eat here. We have to get takeaway and go home. So by the time we got home, it was like much more intense. But it was so brutal because I was coughing through my contractions. Like I'd get a contraction like could not even get a breath sometimes. Anyway, so it was probably like 3 or 4 and it was really intense by then. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have a baby anytime now. And so we were having him upstairs this time, not downstairs. And
you had a birth pool set up.
Yeah.
As well.
Like right in the lounge room. So inconvenient. But so we're just kind of like dancing through all that. My kids were around. Everyone was awake. It was like he was born in the 5 o'clock. I was about to say the 5th hour. Not correct. The 17th hour. Is that right?
I don't know. Don't make me do maths.
So the 5th hour is 5 a.m. 17th hour, I don't know. Anyway, 5 p.m. Rolls around, and basically like he is born, and the kids were there. Everyone was there. Like everyone saw, like even my mum was there, which is funny because my mum is quite like fearful of birth, or like she's like, it's not pleasant, like how we would look at it and be like, it's so awesome. Yeah. Like it's so cool. She was like, holy shit, like that type of reaction and response. Like I'm just going to stay away. I'm going to stay away.
And your mum's just in the background going, holy shit, holy shit.
I think she knew to shut up at that. Like she was not allowed to speak or give any, even like if I looked at my mum and there was a facial expression, I would have been like, get out of here. Yeah. But she was actually really good. She just had the kids and they were just like watching a movie in my room and kind of just letting it. But then at the end when I was like really growling, like really definitely there at the end, I told them to all come out. And so yeah, all the girls were just like by the pool watching, and then he came out. And it was really nice because I've always wanted to, like, you know, in those beautiful birth videos where they like slowly emerge and you like slowly lift them through the water and you don't understand how you're not drowning your baby, but they come out and then it's like this really peaceful thing. And I've always wanted to do that, but it's always been super dark because it's the middle of the night, or I just haven't been conscious enough to think about doing that. So this time I did that and I grabbed him, pulled him up from under and like slowly like glided him out like he was doing a reverse dive out of the water, and just like he just emerged up and I was like, oh, hi. And all the girls are like, I can't even really remember, but it was like such a beautiful little moment of the whole family just being there watching him come out. and it being him, not a girl, which we had actually we found out at like the 20-week mark. And and then it was, so my birth support, same situation, like she was just hanging out on the couch and doing her thing. And I got out of the pool and sat on the couch as well. And then I was kind of just like looking at him and I was like, something just doesn't feel right. And so I was like, I don't think he's breathing properly. And his little nose was like flaring. And he just was like chest was like, I could just see that there was a struggle. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And anyway, I just tried to like attach him to me, my boob, and he just wasn't having a bar of any of it. And this kind of went on for quite a while. And I was like, I just had a feeling. I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And I was asking my birth support, I was like, what do you think about this? And she was like, I can try and, like help him out or whatever, or like try doing, if you want to try doing this and like stimulate him a bit more and like try and get him to go and like have a big cry or something. And so I was trying to do that and nothing was really like, nothing worked. Nothing was like bringing him to a place where I took that feeling of something's not right away. And then it must have been like, but I think he was born at 5-ish in that hour. And then by 7, I was like, I'm going to call a paramedic and I'm going to get them to come in and just like have a look what's going on. And they got there in like 15 minutes. I was so impressed. And I was pretty rattled because like 4 of them came in and they were like, oh yeah, this baby's really struggling. And I was like, what? Like not what I wanted to hear, because I just had literally the most.
But also paramedics are not trained in birth or babies specifically. So I feel like with paramedics, their perception of what is normal is skewed slightly.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously I can't speak for all paramedics. There will be some who have way more experience than others, et cetera. But from my experience with paramedics coming after birth, they tend to lean towards panic more than anything else.
There was definitely a panic in the room. And then I can't even remember what they were like, how they had come to that conclusion that he wasn't okay. And he had like really low oxygen and stuff. And so I transferred and it was the most like numbing, weird feeling going, because they were like, oh, we have to stop quickly and help him with something. And I was like, oh my God, like I had no idea how on the spectrum of like, is my baby actually going to die, or is this routine? Like what is going on here? Because he seemed not great, but not that bad.
Yeah.
And
like
so
he was still alert.
Like I kind of just wanted someone to come and like check, but really, and they came and checked and they were like, he's not okay. And I was like, okay. So anyway, decided to transfer. But then, once I got there, they were like, oh, he's really like struggling to breathe and whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. And then it's interesting because if you've listened to my part 1, I've been in this position before. And so I'm like, oh, they're like, oh, we need to do antibiotics. I'm like, why? Oh, that's right, because I forgot to say that he came out in call, and then as soon as he kind of like emerged into the water, that all like erupted and he came out. So they were like, oh, just for prevention of infection. I was like, well, he was born in call and like there's no science. Like there's nothing telling what's telling you that there's an infection. They're like, well, there's nothing. We're just a precaution. I was like, oh, okay, this is exactly the same as what you did with Pippa. And then like it was literally just like as if they had the same protocol in front of them with this baby. But this baby was different. Like he was over 4 kilos. He was like, it didn't
full term.
Like it wasn't. It felt like a really different scenario playing out, but the same thing was playing out. The same protocols are playing out as what I'd experienced before. And I was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Anyway, it was a really hectic time because once I was admitted, it was like that all had to play out again. And only recently I've actually spoken to you about this, about just working through like a bunch of birth trauma and just like figuring stuff out and like the stories that I've held on to and stuff, that I completely lost sight of the fact of how sick I was during that time and how I was coughing and like struggling to breathe myself. Like I'd be pushing, like I was getting through a contraction, be like, and then like coughing so intensely after each contraction in active labor. And that all just like completely went away. And so when I was there trying to figure out what was going on, I was like, I actually don't know, like everything's fine. And anyway, they were like, are you, like the whole vaccination thing came up and I was like, I'm not COVID vaccinated. And so they treated me like I couldn't have anyone there then. And I was treated like literally no one could enter our little cubicle without full PPE. Like I probably was a disease. I probably did have COVID. I mean, who knows? Anyway, I felt still like, because we'd had like this hectic mold thing going on at our house, that's what it was. Because it was like a fairly ongoing thing. And then I had the headaches and I had all this stuff going on. And so that's kind of just where my mind was naturally at. And so I was like very dismissive of that. But yeah, and then so he ended up staying there for like the same amount of time that Pippa did, and the exact same thing was presented. Anyway, I obviously handled things a lot differently this time because I'd already been there before. I'd already learnt so much more. I'd already realised a couple of things and
what was necessary and
what was necessary and how to just navigate those type of people when you're feeling really vulnerable and but you know better. And so it was actually crazy because like by like day 3 he was like ripping off all of the things and like clearly just didn't want to be there. And the difference is
how was his breathing? Like when did you see his breathing
like
settle?
after 3 or 4 days actually. But the thing is like I don't know, like now I know that when you put a baby on CPAP, that's not a great thing either. Like that comes with negative things as well. I mean, sure, it may also really help babies, but it also has negatives as well and it can suppress as well. Yeah. So like there's just like a lot of what is really necessary and what was actually necessary, what was actually happening. But yeah, I was a lot more confident in that position and ultimately didn't have as much like anxiety and stress and fear and worry about being in that environment because I kind of knew what to expect and what was necessary in a way. But it's always hard because you literally have your postpartum bubble totally burst and you're just in this environment that's not conducive to that.
And you have you have to come back, like snap back so quickly. So like I imagine, every time, and it's definitely gotten like that void between like being in my body and not. Yeah. It has been a longer process, like from when baby arrives to when I feel like I've actually come back as well. Yeah. Every time. So for your fourth time, you have to kind of like snap back into your body. Like you've just been in labor land and you've had like that big like full day of labor land, and then you've had to just like snap back and be switched on. And I mean, we went through this with Brooke, but like it's brutal when you're navigating, especially hospital staff and it's a home birth, like that all comes into play. And so, brutal. Like doctors, you have to like kind of cater to their egos at the same time as, making sure that you're actually in charge and getting your say in and being able to navigate the information they're giving you and looking at your baby and seeing how healthy they are. And like all of that is so logical and technical and so far from the watery world you were just in to birth.
Especially when you have such a blissful birth and everything is, like it's exactly what you plan to do. Yeah. And it's very unassisted. It's very, it's just you having your baby basically. And even for my kids, like they all watched it and then they watched me leave in an ambulance. Like what the fuck is that? And then I wasn't home for like 10 days. But it was an interesting experience, especially in the thick of COVID and just how they manage things. But it was interesting because like I'd have a couple of nurses come in and be like, oh, I'm so sorry that we have to do this. It's ridiculous. And so many people are like, it's ridiculous. Like all these weird rules and COVID and all this and that. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Because like
you're still
doing it and treating me like an animal because of it. Like this isn't very fair. Anyway, it was an interesting time. I challenged every single nurse and doctor to their core. They ended up writing natural mum, leave alone on my whiteboard and just closed the door permanently. But it's interesting because if you haven't been in that position before, you go there and they're like, okay, we're going to do all this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. And then they come in and just do it. And you're often sitting there watching them feed your baby, change your baby's clothes, change your baby's nappies, do all the thing. But you can actually do that. Like you're actually in charge. You can be like, no, I'll do that. Yeah. Or like what needs to be done here, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And like you can actually hold your baby. You can actually get them out of their little thing and like actually just do whatever you want with them.
Yeah.
But when you're there and if you're there for the first time, people are like, oh, can I do that? Like, am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Like, will I hurt my baby? But it's like, yeah, because I'd already experienced that. I knew that I was like, and I can actually do that. I'm just going to treat this baby how I would if it was at home. It's just there's things going on.
Yeah.
But I felt like I could have come home a lot earlier too. But like I was admitted and I was there and I was like, every time they come around, like, can we go? Like this seems really unnecessary. But they were like, no, we need to like tick off all this. I'm like,
so
I can breastfeed. I've got like a whole like I could feed all these babies in Nico. Like look at my fridge, it's full, and So, yeah, it's a bit of a mind game because you just don't really know what's really truly necessary versus what's just ticking boxes. And a lot of it is ticking boxes. Like there are rules like you have to have fed your baby for 24 hours like on the boob before you can go. Like what's a stupid rule? Like that could take days for some people. Whereas like you could just go home, relax and it could happen in 5 minutes. It's like it's not, is it really? I mean, and I'm sure we are a very small percentage of mothers who think and feel like that. Like a lot of those women are in there just with their feet up,
and
not actually
how much
wanting to do any of that. So
yeah. Oh, but not even wanting, but like I just think it to mothers like maybe first time or second time or whatever, you haven't been in that kind of environment. You have
no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and imagine if you've got all these hospital staff coming in and dressing your baby for you and changing the nappy. Like it is a sign to that woman like you're not capable of doing this.
And a lot of those women don't feel capable because they're not given the opportunity.
Exactly.
And there's a really big disconnection from their baby.
Yeah, and it's like it's the same thing as like when they're using medical jargon in front of parents and not translating and not like giving layman's terms. It's like you're just putting those parents in a position to feel inadequate, incapable, like you know, not feeling good about their bodies or something's happened and not understanding so that they can't then take that power back, take that control back, be like, actually, no, I have these intuitions and instincts and I can change my baby's clothes. How infuriating. Just hearing that is so infuriating that they do that. So
it's just not like the whole thing is not supportive to healthy babies either. Like the fact that you can't take your baby outside, but they're like, your baby has jaundice. You're like, well, can I just go outside? Like, could I go for a walk with my baby in my arms? It's like, oh, you might fall. It's like,
I might get hit by a car too. Someone might blow up this hospital. Like so many things might happen.
But there's not a single window in here. How's my baby supposed to heal? Like, honestly. So, yeah, I have a lot of beef with it. But at the same time, like I actually don't know what was ever necessary and what was needed. But all I knew after birth was that something didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I definitely am not going to sit there and be like, something feels wrong, but I'm not going to call because I don't like them. It's like, that's just not, it's like if there's something wrong,
you lay
call,
it down.
like go, do what you need to do. But yeah, it's getting to the hospital and then being wrapped up in that world of like, well, I didn't have time in that 9 months to figure out if CPAP was necessary, did I? Like I didn't have time to figure out if like, you know, because we don't think about that. We think about like at best most are worried about what their nursery looks like. Then you've got people like, more conscious, like, okay, well, what's my birth plan? And then you've got the other people who are like, okay, I'm only planning for postpartum. And then there's like people who, yeah. And then there's like, the free birthing, totally like, but they're still not thinking about like, okay, well, what if that happens?
Yeah.
What if that, what am I going to do? It's like no one thinks about that because it's not.
And look, to give everyone cut a bit of slack, like you don't think about it because you don't think it to be an option. It's kind of like, I don't know, people who are like, oh, make sure you know what you want for a C-section just in case that is the trajectory. And like, I have an idea, but you're always going to, there's always the potential for a situation that you've not planned for and that you're not going to understand and you have to learn on the fly. And this is resilience and adaptability, and why we need this. So, but no, so going back to Banjo's story, so you were there for 10 days, but after 3 you found that he had improved.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think this is any of this is necessary anymore. Like he was ripping, like you've probably seen videos of those NICU babies who like and by the way, like most NICU babies there are like 1.5 kilos to like 2.5 kilos, like tiny little things. And he was like over 4 kilos, this massive
putting on weight,
big red baby, like so strong, wanting to like roll over, almost like just ripping things out of his mouth and his chest and like over it, like clearly being like, what is this shit? I'm ready to leave. Where is my mum? And so after that I was like, and things were just like, because I'd already been there as well in that position before, as soon as I got there, I was like, where's the breast pump? Like I was already, and they were like, oh, okay. I'm like, I need to get that now because I knew that they wouldn't let me
feed him.
And when I say wouldn't let me, I mean like your baby's in a little thing and it's not like if they can't, it's like you're not going to waste time trying to figure that out. Just get them the breast milk straight away. Otherwise they're going to give them this other shit and it's not worth it. So for me, I was like, that was my main thing. I was like, get me that. I need that. And so after like him moving out of, because it wasn't really necessary being in NICU. So he moved out of there and then I was like, okay, well, I can go home now. But it wasn't like that. They were like, no, you need to like tick off all these things. And I was like, what's the list? Like, where's the, and I had my like own little notebook and I was like, okay, so where am I at? Like, this doesn't seem like.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're good. Like if you just let me go, I can put my son out on my balcony in the sun tomorrow. This is all going to go away.
Yeah.
But obviously we don't really think like that, do we? But yeah.
And then
it's weird.
At 10 days he was home.
Yeah. All good.
And resumed.
Yeah, tried to. I can't even remember what my postpartum was. Definitely. I feel like once you've been there, you can't. It's really hard to go home and be like, oh, it's postpartum time. I'm gonna go to bed now, because like you are so
hyped up.
You're just living on like adrenaline, and you're just like you're not really. Yeah. I mean, I had 10 days of doing absolutely nothing, laying in a hospital room but it's not the same. You're not outside. You're not, you're not eating properly. You're not like. All of those things. But the biggest like realization that I've had lately is that I went through 2 years of thinking that like it was something that happened during birth or something that maybe even like an energy or something my birth support person brought in or like my mom or like was there like what happened, like why did that all happen? Because like there's always a reason for something. And so I'd just be like, oh, I'm now I have to free birth and now I can't have any support because that was the reason why that all happened. And then, it wasn't until recently where I was like, after we spoke to
Yo.
Yeah, Yo. And the portal book, and I was like, far out. I have been holding on to some stories and let go of some core memories that probably really are important to address. And so after I caught up, I actually invited my birth support person over for a coffee and I was like, I feel shit about all that. And ultimately like just got that off my chest and reconnected and felt really good about that. And I was like, let that go now. That was really nice. I can move forward.
I feel like these pregnancies have definitely Like, and we've spoken about this.
Yeah, that's a
all the
mild
time.
thing that I had to address during this pregnancy. I've got a long list of shit that I've had to be like, okay, what's next? What else do I have to deal with?
And that's totally what Michelle kind of brought up. Like, just,
Yeah.
you know, babies kicking up the silt from the bottom of the river. It's like, deal with this. I don't want to be born through this.
Good.
Deal this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that was one thing.
Yeah.
But basically it was very like humbling because I was like, it's actually no one's fault. It's not anything that happened. It was just probably something that was happening to me. And but yeah, I'm ready for my birth finale, like the final show of just like, okay, all of those births, the goal was to get to here and it didn't quite get there because something happened. And now this is like, okay, I'm signing off, hopefully, from being pregnant, and I'm going to have this experience. And it's going to be fucking awesome. I'm not transferring and I'm not having a baby early. I'm not doing any of that. Yeah.
I feel that for you. I don't know. It's been like, while the aggression's been high and the rage has been high, it's also been a really relaxing pregnancy.
I think it's because there's been no
COVID.
Well, not just that, but I've been kind of dwelling on this a lot lately, just about the drama of birth and the drama of pregnancy. And like when you're in it, it's like it becomes your entire life. It's like, oh, what are we doing? Like all these things, and like, what am I going to do? And how's everything going to look? And how's everything going to feel? And where am I going to be? And what am I going to do? And like, who's going to be there? And what's it going to look like? And what lights and posters and things can I have on my altar? And it's like, it's very dramatic and it's very consuming and it's very like, it's a lot. And there's been none of that. Not a single.
But also it's nice to like, I don't know, ruminate in that first time round, second time round, like just and make it really special and stuff.
But you realise pretty quick when it's your fifth baby how unimportant it is.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like the truth of what's important, it's nice.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel really excited.
Yeah, yeah.
But it actually means nothing.
Yes.
I mean, it could because like it might help you in a way, but yeah, I just feel like the difference between doing that, not that I was ever like, we've never had a nursery for any of our babies, but there's been a lot of focus on like what we'll have and like where, you know, what will things like the aesthetics of, you know, what my baby will wear, where it will go, what it will do, what my pram is, like what's the car seat vibe, like what's everything look like and feel like.
Yeah.
But this does like zero. Like I haven't even bought a single thing and don't have any plans on. Yeah, like there's just been nothing. Like you'd be the same. Like there's no antenatal care, no
it's just
checkup. There's no thought about it. It's just happening.
Yeah,
and it's really
like,
relaxing.
It's like anything that I would address in life if I felt like I needed care, and because I mean it's not being technically antenatal care, but I've definitely this pregnancy been receiving care for things that have come up or things that I've been experiencing and have not addressed through this pregnancy. And like anything, I would address something. Like if something didn't feel right, I would go and address that.
Absolutely.
So
that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
That's what it's there for.
Yeah. So yeah, but the pressure is off for anything looking a certain way. Yeah. I'm like, you know, I have a rough plan of kind of where I want to birth so that, you know, our walls aren't bloodstained and you know, things like that where you just have like a rough idea.
Logical planning versus aesthetics.
Well, I guess it's kind of aesthetics too. Hey? Our next recording after the birth is just like
I don't know what you're doing during birth, but
but like just, you know, ease of maintenance.
But it's funny because I feel like most people who are pregnant now are carrying this same calmness and attitude and energy about these upcoming births. And I don't know what.
And it's because it's just part of life, isn't it?
I think we've all learnt something or like discovered something or had that like download of like, this is just a very normal experience. And the less stories and drama and things and stress and focus on it there is, it's just so much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. All right. Should we wrap this one up?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll have part 2 of mine coming out at some stage also. And
It may
thank
be
you,
a
Chloe,
little
for
bit more.
sharing.
It may be a little bit more interesting. Actually, yours are probably as boring as mine.
Probably as boring. I've got a cool conception story. That's about it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you, Chloe, for sharing. I know our audience.
I wish it was more exciting.
It was a little bit.
I should have dramatized it a bit more.
There was a bit more excitement than I think you let on.
Yeah, true.
A transfer is always a little bit exciting. I know.
Yeah.
Not what you want kind of excitement.
Not exciting, but it's a bit of drama. Yeah,
drama.
love a bit of drama.
All right. Peace out.
Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.